Welcome to PT Podcast with Eric for 2016. So the first question we have is from Noni Metcalf, and it is, I am trying to find the balance between exercise and healthy eating. Any hot tips? So Noni, the most important thing when we come to exercise and nutrition is to first of all understand what your body type is and what your goals are and what style of training you're going to train in order to achieve those goals. So there are three types of body types in general, and we have one called the ectomorph. Now the ectomorph is your tall and skinny body type, and they are sort of prone to your carbohydrates. So you guys can burn carbohydrates quite easily, and you metabolize carbohydrates very well. And then you have what we call the endomorph. So the endomorph is right in the middle. They're the body type that was quite muscular, and they have a good muscular base, and they have quite a balanced diet in the sense that they can favor between, your macros of your proteins, your carbs, and your fats right in the center. And then on the far right, or the other side of the spectrum, you've got your mesomorph. So they're your short and stockier type of body types. We call them the Greco-Roman wrestlers, and they're the ones that could have more of a Mediterranean diet, so more fats, so good omega-3s, and higher protein but lower carbohydrate intake. So once you sort of work out, or you do your research and you find where you sit in the body types, or what we call somatotypes, you can then start to work out what type of nutritional balance you should be eating, and then work out around your training schedule. Now, generally though, if you're an elite level athlete, you want to focus on, like for example, red meat and something with some substantial calories within it that will help you for that workout. So if you're doing a weight-based workout, but then if you're going to do an endurance type of event or training, well then you want to favor more towards your carbohydrates. So exercise and healthy eating really comes into line with, once again, your body type and what your goals are. So hopefully that will lead you in the right direction. So we have a question from Vanessa Edwards. Hi, I have a wedding to go to and was wondering what's the best exercise to turn up quicker. Interesting question, Vanessa. Yes, my wife would ask the same question actually. And is there a magical response to that? Well, first and foremost, I have to say no. It's something that we have to, develop over a period of time, and you can't just crash diet your way into a wedding dress. However, on the flip side though, you can have a look at your your water intake and try to reduce any form of inflammation, which may get you into that wedding dress a little bit easier. So you may choose to load up in terms of water and then slowly tend to phase it out. Now that's something that you would do as more the competitive side of bodybuilding and fitness competitions. So not really recommended for the general public. You may choose to take herbal diuretics like celery, or eat celery, or in celery and juniper. They may assist you towards getting into that wedding dress, but really that type of question is something we need a bit of mental planning, and the more planning you do, the better you'll be able to fit into that dress. So Heather asked the question, hi Eric, just wondering how much rest should we have between workouts, and what's the best for weight loss, cardio or weights? So I'll ask the latter part of that question. Should you do cardio or weights? Well, believe it or not, to achieve the best results, you should be actually combining the two together. A cardiovascular training with weights. So for example, you may do burpees with dumbbells. Okay, so that's one example that it will definitely get your heart rate up. You are using resistance training, using a lightweight at the same time, or you may choose to walk on a treadmill with a set of dumbbells by your side. Now, that will be less load onto the body, but increase that the calorie burning at the same time, and your heart rate will be at that fat burning phase. So that's another example. You may choose to go for a jog around the block, get your body up, body heat up, and then move into resistance training workout for another 20 or 30 minutes thereafter. So there's a lot of variations you can do. It's always good to do cardio prior to doing weights, but then again, it depends on what your fitness goals are. So if it was to build muscle mass, or maybe it's perhaps during an off season and strength training is the focus, then I would reduce the cardio aspect and maybe do the weights first. But please be careful that you warm up carefully beforehand. And then similarly, you may do the opposite. So you may want to lose body weight, and in this question it says weight loss. So I would do cardio beforehand and then move on to a resistance training program. If your heart rate does go too high, moving from cardio through to the weights, you may choose to do some isometric exercises such as a plank or a seated V-sit, or in yoga where they call it a boat position. So that allows you to still do an exercise while you're breathing heavily. It tries to lower your heart rate, but it keeps you in that fat burning phase. So then you can get up and then continue your resistance training. So it may be lunges and full body movements such as that. The other part of your question is how much rest should you have between workouts? That's a very good question, and we do get a lot of questions regarding recovery. And I did answer this question in the past in the sense that, well, it depends on what your fitness levels are or what your training age is. So the fitter you are, you may not need to have too much of a recovery in between. And also, depending on the level of sport that you train or compete in, or if you are just general pops, because believe it or not, an elite level athlete does not train as much as we think. What we do on the fitness spectrum of things in gymnasiums is actually a lot higher than what you see at a sports performance center. So we need to keep in mind that yes, recovery is important. Once again, I'm not a big advocate of training twice a day. I feel that is overtraining. And also there is a life outside of a gym as well. So it depends. You may have a training split, which we call a split in the sense that what is your routine or your cycle with exercise. 3 on, 1 off is very good, and then another 2 on and 1 off. Or you may train 5 days straight and have the weekend off. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It depends around your lifestyle, your time availability, and so on. And then going into that, it also depends on when you train. So, for example, if you train first thing on a Monday morning, you may train once again on a Wednesday evening, and then you've given yourself ultimately over 2 full days, even more so, of recovery, even though it's a Monday and a Wednesday session. So it depends on your planning in that sense as well. But yes, the question is very good. You do need recovery. Yes, cardio and weights highly recommended to achieve weight loss goals. So Mark's question states, "Hi Eric, I've seen a few articles lately about what exercises not to do for a 40-year-old. What are your thoughts on this topic?" Well, Mark, it really depends, because a 40-year-old isn't geriatric, and they can do a fair bit of exercise. I'm 39 and I like to think that I can still do pretty good in the gymnasium. So I think we should not limit ourselves regarding our age. Nevertheless, it depends on what your training age is. So even though you're a 40-year-old, you may have a training age that is only a level 1. So for example, you've never been in the gym before and you really don't know what you're doing, so you need a lot of guidance. So that's when I would think articles like the one you may be alluding to would be something where you need to be very careful. Balance is probably the first and foremost thing you need to focus on, and then things such as proprioception and mind-muscle connection with your body. Once you get that sort of settled, then you can start working on to more resistance training and move into shaping of the body and so on. But with a question like that, I don't think age should depict what level of exercise you can do. Nevertheless, though, as we do get older, we do lose muscle mass or atrophy over time. It affects our heart rate and so on in terms of our stroke volume, of how much our heart can pump blood throughout our body and through our heart. So that does happen over time. But in terms of exercise performance, I think some of the other things to be aware of, not necessarily at the age of 40, but as you get, in your 60s and 70s, is just refrain from high to low movements because of things such as vertigo, low blood pressure, and so on. So if you do like a push-up, you don't want to get up very quickly off the floor because you may feel really dizzy and hurt yourself. So a 40-year-old, I think you're doing quite well. You still technically got another 46 years on average for a male to live. So I think you're right in the middle, and I think you've got a great future ahead of you. Joe Braddock's question. Hi Eric, I'm a mother of 4 kids and finding it hard to find time, and I'm lacking motivation to exercise. Do you have any ideas for time-starved mums? I can totally relate to that one, not as a mother, but as a father of 4, and time is the essence. So when is the best time to train, I think? Well, it depends on the family situation and if you have a partner, and if you can do something first in the morning prior to him waking up, that would be awesome. Training first in the morning is great. They do say there's a lot of myths regarding training on a empty stomach and in terms of fat burning and so on, but from my own experience, I highly recommend it. And I think the bodybuilding and fitness industry out there would support you. With strategies regarding time management, well, I would highly recommend, if it's the weather is great and it's daylight saving, try and take the kids with you outside. Kids love to go jogging with their parents. They like to show what they can do. So, and at the same time, it just shows that the parent is an advocate for health and fitness. So that could possibly be another strategy. You may choose to go and do a Tabata workout. So for example, it's a high intensity interval training, called HIIT training, and it's designed to do a high level of exercise, get your heart rate to a maximal heart rate, and then have a quick sudden recovery. And it seems like you can get more in your body, for example, in a shorter period of time. And what it's designed to do is that even though you have a 10-second, or you can have a recovery based on what you choose to, so you might have a 1 minute on with a 30-second recovery, or 1 minute on, 1 minute off. And if we were to graph your heart rate, you see these peaks and troughs. Now, during these peaks and troughs, that's if you're zoomed up to your graph. But if you were to step away from that graph, over time, you will see almost a straight line. But this straight line will actually go on an incline, because over time, as you fatigue more, your heart rate will get higher. So you actually are compounding in a short period of time, such as 20 minutes, a great workout. And then if you are training first in the morning, you will then be metabolizing for the next 16 hours of your day. And that's the great thing. And then as the evening comes, you'll then, pretty much go to sleep, and then the cycle or your biorhythm starts again. So I would highly recommend either training with the kids, demonstrate your love for health and fitness, or if you're going to train on your own, first in the morning while hubby's got the kids, and do a Tabata session of 20 minutes. So we have a question from Katie. Hi Eric, I'm particularly interested in what foods you would recommend that have anti-inflammatory properties to help manage the constant and varied niggles associated with my cardio running training. So it seems like, Katie, if I can infer, that you're training at a relatively high level, and you're interested in how do you reduce inflammation. So inflammation in this context, you can have your body swell or get redness or actually heat up according to stresses on the body. Now, stresses can involve physical stress, emotional stress, even environmental stresses such as food, and also just even financial stress and things like that. All these impact the human body, and it affects our level of influence and also our level of control. Now, in this instance, you're controlling the amount of exercise you want to do, but you're pushing your body, and it is in turn possibly affecting how inflamed you are, or maybe even your ankles and things. Now, if you are, a good way to assess whether you are inflamed, especially around your feet area, is what we call pitting. So you get your thumb and you push it down on your foot or just around your ankle area, and if it leaves an imprint for a couple of seconds, or it is white because of lack of blood flow to that area, you know that you are quite inflamed. Now, with this particular question, I got a bit of backup. I spoke to my friend who's a dietitian, Stephanie Haig, and we both agreed that the best foods for anti-inflammatory properties are those with omega-3. So that's anything, or my first and foremost would be salmon. Big fan of salmon. Any form of vegetable oil or a canola oil is very good. A lot of people fear oils and fats, but in this instance, oils are very good for reducing inflammation. You may also have soybean, anything on those lines. And then also, just I spoke earlier today, I don't mind the whole celery thing if it's, or just eating celery as a natural way of reducing water retention, which in turn is inflammatory response as well, or is a symptom of it. So that wraps up the PT podcast with Eric for the start of 2016. Thank you for the questions. They were plentiful, and I think they're great. The questions you guys are asking is making me think about a little bit more. Also thinking about the course content that we're writing, because if these are the type of questions people are asking as general populations, then we can feed that back to our learners. And I really appreciate it. It's like it's a win-win situation. So I hope the questions and their responses have served you well, and we'll send another screenshot, and I ask you to, or we invite you to write your questions for the next week. Have a great day.